The succession crises that had occurred in the Ottoman Empire and the Kingdom of Hungary must have had Stefan eyeing Poland with great anticipation after the announcement of King Casimir's passing. Whether he was hoping to see another struggle for power as he'd taken advantage of with Sultan Mehmed's death, or worried about what such a war could entail as in the case of King Corvinus's death, would be his little secret. But either way, no crisis took place. John Albert would take Casimir's throne in Poland, while his younger brother, Alexander, would be crowned in Lithuania. The Prince of Moldavia now just had to determine how he would react. Throughout Stefan's entire reign thus far, he had shown his remarkable intellect and strategic abilities when it came to handling foreign affairs. He knew at all times to keep a close watch on all of his neighbors and lean in favor of whoever would benefit him and his principality best at the time. Thus, the voivode lacked a strong, immediate reaction to the changes in Poland and Lithuania. Knowing that he had friends in Moscow, Hungary, and part-time allies in Poland and the Ottoman Empire, there was no reason to stir the pot just yet. But when Casimir's sons decided to meet in Lucca in the spring of 1494, Stefan paid close attention. The aim of the meeting between Vladislaus of Hungary, John of Poland, and Alexander of Lithuania was to plan a joint campaign against the Ottoman Empire, which they all could now agree was their shared foe. This spirit of cooperation was, however, quickly tainted by John Albert's own ideas, particularly concerning Moldavia. Despite Vladislaus's friendship with the nearby voivode, John wanted to overthrow Stefan in favor of Casimir's other son, Sigismund. An air of suspicion would soon make its way to the Moldavian prince himself, who thus began to distrust the new king of Poland. Stefan, being the observant man he was, believes that John Albert wanted to strengthen his control over Moldavia, and when John shortly launched an attack on the Ottomans occupying Kilia and Citata Alba, these fears seemed to be confirmed. Despite a notable effort to stop the Polish king, Stefan was unable to interfere with the campaign and subsequently turned to his ally in Moscow for assistance. Ivan III was quick to back his ally and friend, and thus reached out to Alexander of Lithuania with a request that he stay out of his brother's war. Possibly due to the shared opinions of many Lithuanian nobles, Alexander agreed to steer clear of the conflict and thus save Stefan from an added threat. This still wasn't enough to change the mind of John Albert, though, and by the summer of 1497, Polish troops broke down the door into Moldavia. Stefan had seen this coming. Having made sure to remain on good terms with Sultan Bayezid, the incursion allows the Moldavian prince to receive a few hundred men in arms from the Ottoman Empire to aid his territory's defense. Meanwhile, attempting to end the conflict from both angles, Stefan sent his chancellor, a man by the name of Isaac, to meet with the Polish king and diplomatically request an end to the assault. If John Albert had been a man of diplomacy, his skills at it had surely lapsed at this time, as he responded to Isaac's request by throwing him in prison. The war consequently raged on, as the Poles now pushed deeper into Moldavia. They were expecting additional Teutonic troops to arrive any day, but Stefan himself was welcoming over 10,000 Hungarians onto his side, thanks to John's brother across the border. The Polish king was alone, and the Moldavians had the backing of both Hungary and the Ottomans, as well as health. The Polish troops were contrastingly blindsided by a plague outbreak, and their ongoing siege, not Stefan's defenses, were crumbling to dust. By the end of October, the tables had turned, and the voivode was ruthlessly chasing his invaders out. Either they left Moldavian soil or died on it. A string of Moldavian raids into Poland reinforced the point in case anyone had misunderstood, and John Albert was now faced with the facts that many before him had too leaned the hard way. Stefan wasn't going anywhere. A new alliance was soon created between Hungary, Poland, and Moldavia, with Stefan further securing his standing as more than just an average prince among kings. By now, though, the crafty Moldavian was aging and had already begun grooming his son, Bogdan, to take his throne in the coming years. The voivode had reigned for decades over a period of relative stability for his people, particularly in contrast to the rapid changes of authority in neighboring Wallachia. To oust Stefan of Moldavia from power would have been as easy as ripping the stars from the sky, and his people, in many cases, adored him. He was viewed by many boyars as cruel and tyrannical, but by the peasantry often as their guardian and a just ruler. This discrepancy may come from his tendency to reward those who supported his strong central government, which often included the lower classes of nobility over the entitled boyars. He was undeniably seen as a supporter of the church nonetheless, as he had many new churches constructed, rewarded the church with lands, and encouraged monasticism. His view on foreigners, however, would serve often as another reason to critique the long-reigning prince, as he was not afraid to persecute certain groups such as Hussites, Roma, and Jews. Contrarily, though, Stefan was often found to look to experts from outside his borders when it came to expanding his understanding of topics such as politics and the like. It's possible that his involvement with these foreigners helped contribute to his innate ability to play puppet master with his neighbors, moving kings and emperors against each other and in favor of himself like pieces on a chessboard. His awareness and political genius were startling, and a pillar of his reign and ability to maintain power so unwaveringly. His abilities at war were no less dazzling, however, and necessary. If the voivode himself is to be believed, he fought 36 battles and won 34 of them. He often had help from his allies in the form of manpower, which cannot be ignored. But neither can the simple fact that his cleverness and resourcefulness is the reason why he managed to always have aid. Stefan's reputation had been set, but his time as Prince of Moldavia was not over yet. He was tasked with guiding his son in the same direction as he'd gone all these years. One of Bogdan's first and most crucial acts as Stefan's co-ruler was to aid in the renegotiation of peace with Poland and, as of 1499, the end of Polish suzerainty over Moldavia. A year later, the father and son duo would cease paying tribute to the Sultan and send words to Venice with an offer to join the Ottoman-Venetian War and a request for a doctor to help treat Stefan's declining health. Matteo Mariano, a Venetian physician, was sent in response to Stefan's request, but Moldavian attempts to re-engage in war with the Ottomans failed, and efforts to retake Kalia and Cetata Alba came up short. Over the next few years, clashes with the Ottomans, Tartars, and Poles would follow, but peace was eventually made again in 1503, and Stefan agreed to once more pay a yearly tribute to the Ottoman Empire. Before his death, the voivode would press his son on the issue, insisting that he too continue to pay their share to the Sultan. And with Stefan's doctor now deceased, a new request went out for another in hopes of extending his own rule for just a little longer. But the prince was old, drained after so many decades of war and politics. His leg, which had never healed after his clash with Vlad Dracula over his beloved Kalia, was no longer the worst of his ailments. He was fading away, and he could. He had left his mark over 47 years of voivodeship. He had prepared his son to take over his duties, and there was nothing left for him to do. It is only a shame that he died on July 2nd, 1504, knowing that Kalia still remained out of Moldavian hands. It may very well have been Stefan the Great's only regret.